Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well. We're going to present some stuff to here, but we're also going to make it a little bit fun, so get engaged. So I'll start off here. Anybody a Home Depot customer, raise your hand. Okay, we'll start with a thank you, because we really appreciate that, and you enable us to do what we do. So I am David Hetzler. I am the Director of Identity and Access Management. I work within our cybersecurity organization, and I've been with Home Depot for 3 years. Sorry, I'll try not to do that.
Hey all, glad to see the turnout here. I'm Varun Sharma. I'm the Identity Engineering Manager, and I focus on identity governance and administration at Home Depot.
So today we're going to talk to you about our journey, and I'll start by doing a little bit here. So journey. We talk about IAM as a program, not a project. I use it as a journey. It's the same thing. You're never going to get to the top of the mountain with IAM. You're always going to be doing something new. There's always going to be an additional challenge. And this is our journey. Our journey we're sharing because we think it's important for other people to understand other customers' journeys. It doesn't mean you're going to be on the same journey. Our message here kind of is the art of the possible. We achieved some things that we're very happy with, and we want to share that. And that somewhat is meant to be motivational, to say, okay, your teams can do it, other teams can do it. By far, we're not the best at everything we do. We're good at many things. We've done them well. So I'm going to get started here. There we go. So Home Depot, so a good number of you raise your hand saying you're familiar with the company, your customers. We appreciate that. Home Depot is, in many sense, a fairly new company. It's about 43 years old. We have 2,316 stores. So that, in some senses, is, you know, if you're comparing to some numbers like a Starbucks, it's not that high. For Home Depot, our stores are huge. You know, looking at 128,000 square feet, large stores, takes many people to work them. Our center is in Atlanta, so we call it the Store Support Center. So one of the things I'll talk about is Home Depot's culture. We do not call it headquarters. We are there to support the stores. We're not there to be in charge of things. We're there to support the business. And a lot of what we're doing from an IAM side is how do we enable the business? How do we support the business? In what we do with identity, I talk about our topic as being at scale. We support 500,000 associates, okay? 500,000 associates gives many different flavors, many different varieties of things. When we do things and we have an oops moment, you multiply that times 500,000, it matters. So for us, getting things right is important because we've got to test in small areas and then grow it out. It's a $151 billion company, so I'm going to go into that for a second. Through COVID, we grew by $40 billion. We went from 110 to 150 billion. Thank you again to the customers. I appreciate that you didn't like the carpet, that you didn't like the colors in your house, that you needed the new deck. We appreciate all those things. When you think about that, so I know this isn't a supply chain conference, but supply chain, we all know that our supply chain has been tremendously challenged. Think about a company like us putting $40 billion extra of product through our supply chain in a year when everybody else is having supply chain issues. You know, we had to move $40 billion of product. That's a lot of product going through. That means our identity had to be perfect in order to help people get that through to drive the revenue. We have an online platform, so many of you may be used to stores, but we have an online platform where you can buy and have it shipped to you. You can deliver it in stores. 55% of our online orders, people pick up in the stores. So our online is very connected to our store presence. We don't treat them as separate. They're very integrated. And our online presence, due to pandemic and all, has really gone through 100% growth. So I give that to you just to give you a different perspective. You've got the customer perspective to give you a little bit perspective on the numbers of the company. When we look at the culture of the company, so I asked you how many of you are customers. We are very servant leadership bit. So if you look on the left-hand side, the customer is our number one thing. Underneath that is the associates. We have to support our associates. You notice our CEO is at the bottom. Our CEO supports the company. We don't all view it as we have to follow the CEO. We want to follow the CEO, but we're all there to support this customer and the associates. So that is our real mantra, and I've been at many different companies. At Home Depot, it's very real. We then have 8 values, and those 8 values have been with the company from the beginning. When you look at an identity and access management perspective and look at those values, we are taking care of our people. We help our people be known as they want to be known by using a preferred name rather than a legal name. We help make sure we give customer service. We build relationships across the team. You can go around that value wheel, and when we are working with identity, we're tying to those things every day. And then for the customer, we really promise to give convenience and value, and hopefully, you guys raise your hands, you're repeat customers, you see that. Okay? So going forward, you'll notice we had a little bit of fun with the presentation, a little bit of theme, hammering out the challenges. We get into our Home Depot a bit. This page, it's an eye chart. I'm not expecting you to read it all. I'm giving it there as an example. This page is something that we created 3 years ago in our journey. We updated it since. And my reason for sharing this is I think every IAM program should have it. So we start with a goal. I got hired into Home Depot with the line of make us be one of the top 10 IAM programs. Whether we ever reach that, whether we don't reach it, don't know. There's no real good comparisons. But that's a goal to say let's be one of the best in the world at IAM. That's not something that every program has, but we set a goal to say let's do what we do and do it very well. And let's be really inspirational and out there. On the left-hand side of this, we said, what are our challenges? What is it we're trying to fix? Cumbersome user experience, legacy and redundant tools, disparate and manual processes. Does anybody else have any resemblance of those things in their environment? Okay, so we said those are the problems we have. At the bottom left, we said, what are the benefits we want to have? Let's reduce our risk, enhance our user experience, make this thing scalable. We're at 500,000 people. How do we make it scalable? And how do we really centralize our catalog? All those different things we do. On the upper right-hand side, how do we address these? We said we're going to enhance our credential and identity management. We're going to simplify access management. We're going to streamline authentication and single sign-on. Those 3 things are all things that we did with SailPoint tools in some ways. Even the authentication because of what we did with password management, not authentication per se. Also protecting privilege access. In the bottom, I put this as a little bit of a marketing. So we're here at a conference focused on governance. Our team is a full stack IAM team. So we have the identity lifecycle management, the access lifecycle management. We do authentication and password management. We manage all of our customer identity. Now, we don't do that with SailPoint, but we're doing that as well to get those synergies. We've got privilege access management, data and directory services. So data and directory services, I'm going to pause for a minute. We have the challenge that we have more directories than we would like to manage, okay? I think there's probably a couple of you who have similar to that. Anybody have over 2,000 directories? Okay, we have well over 2,000 directories. Each one of our stores has to be able to operate in Hurricane Ian, as an example. In order to deliver the goods, we have to be able to operate. So we have to have a directory at that store for people to be able to operate. So we're managing well north of 2,000 directories. We do it well. We're looking for better ways to do it. But that complicates an IAM program to say, how do you do this? Identity analytics. We're always looking to improve how do we use our data. And then we have certificate management. So we're actually including our machine IDs in this. So I include that as a little bit of a marketing bit because we are a full stack IAM program doing many different things. And by the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning, we have mics in the 2 aisles. We're going to plan on doing about a 30-minute presentation. We're leaving about 15 minutes at the end so you guys can ask questions. So there will be time for questions at the end. So staying with our tool mantra, so we had to choose what tools we wanted to use. When we started our journey, we had way too many tools. We had, just in the IGA space, we had 8 different tools. In our overall IAM space, when I joined the company 3 years ago, we had 45 tools. So those tools were partially deployed. They were not fully deployed. They were deployed for different businesses. You know, Home Depot, like many companies, has been through acquisitions. So we have 13 or 14 what we call operating units, which are smaller companies that we're centralizing and standardizing. So using the right tools, we had to look at all the things that we had and all the things out in the marketplace to say, what is it that we really want to use? So when we went through our tool selection, we had to say, what's our vision? Where do we want to be? We wanted to have associates be productive hour one, day one. I heard one of the speakers this morning talk about returning 1 million hours of productivity back to the workforce. We had hundreds of thousands, I won't go into a specific number, hundreds of thousands of new joiners last year, okay? We have cyclical cycles, garden season, where we have to hire many, many people. If we can save an hour per person, you have 100,000 people you're hiring, that adds up. We had the challenge that our systems, that we wanted to be able to automate I-9, so when a person comes in on their first day, the first thing they do is go to do their I-9. They do that after they've logged in. We had to get it so they could log in. Our old systems didn't allow that on the first day, so that was a big one. We must be flexible enough to handle the seasonality of the customer, of the company's business. So as we go through the different seasons, garden season, Black Friday, those things, we had to be able to handle that smoothly without being a hiccup. Because of our size and scale, so we are international. We have US, Canada, and Mexico. We don't have a lot of other countries. We've got a lot of sourcing that is offshore, that's overseas. But we have a lot of edge case scenarios, especially with having all those organizational units that we've purchased through time. So we had to make sure that we could hit that size and scale. We wanted to really standardize our technology. So we didn't want to be dealing with this plethora of tools that were disconnected. We needed to have one solution. And you look at it and go, we're a Fortune 17 company. We had to be able to handle the challenges that a Fortune 17 company has, and the microscope that a Fortune 17 company is under to make sure that we're secure. We want to make sure we're ahead of the game, okay? So when we look at this, we had all of our approaches and considerations.
Sure. Thank you, David. So I'm going to be taking a deeper dive into the implementation considerations and the journey we had over the last 2.5 years. So I'm not going to be talking about business objectives because David already covered all of that. I'm an engineer. I'm going to focus on what I know. So I'll be talking about considerations first before I actually get into the deep dive of the journey. So we have put the considerations up here in 4 categories. Obviously, we had many more, but I've tried to club them as best as I could. So the first consideration was product, and to be honest, that wasn't actually much of a discussion. We wanted a market leader. We wanted to choose a vendor that would have a history of innovation and listening to its customers, and something that would provide us a ton of integration options, something that would provide us the flexibility to customize to our complex use cases. So our product selection, you guys know what direction we went since we're all here. So, but we ended up choosing actually both Identity IQ and Identity Now for our needs. We use Identity IQ for doing identity and access lifecycle management for our enterprise identity environment. So over 500,000 identities that David mentioned, where we do all the identity and access lifecycle management, is being done in Identity IQ. We use IDN to do our password management use cases. So any day-to-day password resets, first-time password setting and all that is done in IDN.
Let me just add a quick comment there. We made our choice 3 years ago. We're very happy with our choice. Our choice fits us well. In that 3 years, Identity Now has changed. Identity Now has increased in capability, increased in things. There's reasons that we chose what we did. Yep. If we chose today, we might choose differently. If we chose 3 years from now, we might choose differently. This really represents where we were 3 years from now. I say that for any prospective customers that are going, hey, yes, why did we choose what we did? There's always a point in time, and these tools are changing, and our requirements are changing.
Yeah, Every day. I mean, products evolve every day. I mean, we talked about the Identity IQ 8.4 roadmap yesterday. So we're going to be looking forward to new features up ahead and continually thinking about how to improve experiences. And we may have to make a revision and choices at some point. But moving on, the next consideration for us was infrastructure. And we wanted to have a cloud-first approach for everything that we were setting up behind the scenes. So from your OS VMs to your databases to everything in between, we wanted to make sure that everything was on the cloud so it could rapidly adapt to our changing demands as we were transforming. And on a similar note, we ended up using managed database services. So our vendor of choice was Azure. At this point, we have a singular cloud approach, which is working out pretty well for us, actually. As an example, quite recently, we had to basically double our capacity of IAQ task servers. And we were able to do that in a matter of 2 days. So not weeks. It happened in 2 days, all because we had a cloud-first approach. And that was due to some unanticipated demand, right? We had sized everything properly in the beginning, but new use cases came in, new traffic came in. We've all been through those scenarios, right? A cloud-first approach helped us set up new servers, route additional traffic through them, and alleviate the user load quite fast. So moving on to the third category, foundations. So we made sure, and we made sure is kind of a strong term. We encouraged strong systems design foundations from the very beginning. So some of the key ones I want to call out are using we built and deployed everything as a code from the beginning. So everything I mentioned about infrastructure, that, as well as all of our application code was being deployed, was built and deployed as a code from day one. And that helped us make our change cycles repeatable and also audit friendly. Auditors love to see that you're doing the same thing over and over. Your evidence cycle becomes so much faster, and they know what to expect. So deploying or rolling back was easy for us. So we had hundreds of releases, in these last 2 years, and all of that was made possible through a deployment pipeline. We also encouraged asynchronous integrations between systems to have independence as systems scaled or they were patched. The next thing I want to touch on is as we integrated thousands of applications, we tried to build onboarding frameworks for each type of application that we were onboarding. So whether it was a database or an API or something else, we tried to build modular frameworks and tried to also, in some cases, build them into the pipeline, so we could achieve a good, agile kind of deployment schedule. So, as an example, David mentioned earlier that we have 2,300 stores. So for each store, we have 2 types of applications, and it's a rinse and repeat model. So we had a challenge to set up over 4,500 applications for those 2,300 stores. And we were able to accomplish that using what I mentioned, a rinse and repeat framework, a deployment pipeline, all in 6 weeks. I'll let that sink in. 4,500 applications in 6 weeks. And these are not logical applications. These are individual systems that have to be built and integrated into SailPoint. And we were able to accomplish that with the framework that I was mentioning earlier. So lastly, I want to talk about team. So one can't overlook a team when you're going through a transformation such as this one. And you will always need the right kind of team to accomplish the goals you're setting out. And the right team is going to differ from organization to organization. And for us, right team meant keeping sub-teams, one that would focus on engineering, one that would focus on KTLO, keeping the lights on existing legacy platforms, one that would focus on operating the new infrastructure, the new features you're setting up in SailPoint. So for us, those 3 teams' constitutions, their skill sets, their priorities were changing every day because you're transforming. Some stuff is moving from legacy to the new platforms and so on. So it was constantly changing. And from day one, we realized that we had to keep the team's motivations, their burn levels, their skill sets top of mind because otherwise they would get behind, they would get frustrated with all of that. So it was important for the management team to keep that top of mind and made sure that they had appropriate knowledge as we were kind of going through the transformation. Another thing that I want to call out for the team is as we were moving from an operations only to an engineering focused culture, we tried to introduce certain principles such as fail fast, right? We wanted the team to innovate as we were going through this exercise and have the freedom to innovate, right? And that, give them some air cover, give them the freedom to innovate, and let them kind of go out and do their best, right? So what's really fail fast? You go out, try something, you fail, you come back and try again, right? There's no judgment. So that kind of a thing helped us achieve our goals really in a hyper-aggressive way. And a good example of that is earlier this year, and I'm really proud of this story, earlier in Feb this year, we were given the target to...
Given by me.
He's to be blamed, but we had a 2-month piece of roadmap that we were,
Can you do by Monday?
Yes, basically. It was a 8-day, and I'm not counting the weekends, obviously. So we were given 8 days to get something done. That was, planned out for 2 months, right? Business reasons aside, we were tasked with that sort of a thing, and we gave the engineers air cover. We said, hey, do your best. If you can't make it happen, sure, we're going to do the manual route. But at the end of the day, at the end of those 8 days, the team really did innovate and come through, and were able to pull about 95% of the use cases by volume. And put them in the automated way, the right way. The 5% that remained, we were able to get it out in a couple of weeks. But I just want to bring that story up because I want to call out that the team factor can't be ignored. You need like an A team that's super motivated to make a good transformation happen, to make an aggressive transformation happen.
So Varun, can you walk us kind of through our journey here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be touching on the identity governance and administration journey here, and I'll kind of try to go through it a little bit fast because I think I shared a lot of stories. But we'll touch upon some of the, how we went through it, and we'll talk about password after this. So up first, around mid-2020, we started with a discovery and centralization exercise, which was go out and discover what your key assets are, what your SOC systems are, what's your PCI, PII, privileged access platforms. And on the side, we knew certain platforms that had to be integrated already, right? We knew what our key directories were, what our key mainframe platform is, what our HR systems are, what our request and service management platform is. So we started integrating with that already. And in parallel, we started doing a discovery exercise with some of our BAs. Early 2021, we were prepared, and we started to do the rollout of what I'm calling the hygiene capabilities. So why I call them hygiene is because, pretty much it's universal. It applies to pretty much every organization out there. You've got to have certifications, access requests, transfers, account management, entitlement management. So everything, all those basic capabilities we hit starting early 2021, and that went on for about a year. In parallel with the IAM hygiene stuff, the hygiene capabilities, we started doing our integrations. And as I was mentioning before, we've done thousands of integrations so far. But that was integrating, starting with SOCs. We integrated all kinds of databases, directories, APIs, SDKs, scripts, cloud platforms, mainframes. So we did all of those integrations in parallel. So the hygiene and integration stuff, took us through most of 2021. From early 2021, approximately March 2021 to February 2022, with the rollout of the capabilities and the integrations, we had decommissioned 3 legacy platforms. Next, in 2022, we started on some of our compliance requirements. And 2 of the key ones that I want to call out are the detection of unauthorized access. So anything that is getting granted outside of the legit means, outside of the approved identity and access solutions. So we focused on that. And then we also focused on eliminating data debt. What I'm calling data debt is basically, your data owners are leaving the company, so identifying, hey, who's leaving, who's going on LOA, and automatically reassigning that upwards. So the ownership is not lost. So we can continue to certify and be able to govern those entitlements out there. So we focused on some of those gotchas, right after the hygiene and integrations. And then we jumped at the very end to the end-to-end lifecycle management, which is basically our joiner, mover, leaver stuff. And some of the organizations decide to take that up early. For us, it was a lower priority for compliance reasons, and also pretty complex, for an organization our size, because we had to do JML processes not just for the corporate, but also stores. And we had thousands of directories, so many systems across stores, but we had to do joiner, mover, leaver processes. So the JML release was about doing the workflows themselves, integrating the 4,500 applications that I mentioned earlier, and then also doing password syncs from the corporate directories out to the peripheral systems in the stores. And lastly, we're actually at the self-service onboarding phase right now, and this is actually happening as we speak. Mm-hmm. We're trying to pilot a solution that would onboard applications in a self-service way. Give application owners the capability to go out and onboard something themselves. So we're trying to build a workflow and API-based solution that would let them do that. And this is basically targeted to solve the perennial problem of new applications coming in, and they're going out of governance. So
with IIQ here, it's been less than 3 years since we signed the deal to purchase SailPoint products. We've done multiple releases throughout this to do feature after feature after feature. But within about 2.5 years, for a 500,000 person company, we've completely rolled out joiner, mover, leaver, certifications, and access requests. So we're happy about that. It takes a lot of work. One of the key things I'll mention before we switch on is we did have an integration partner. That integration partner has been tremendous. You've got to make sure you've got somebody who you use the true word partner rather than the word vendor. I treat them separately to help you out through these things. So can you give us a quick view? So we talked to IIQ. Can you talk what we did with IDN?
So on to the password management journey, and I promise this is my last slide, so I'm going to stop talking about after this one, unless you guys have questions. So about the password management journey, we used Identity Now, as I was mentioning before. And our first release for Identity Now was basically day-to-day password reset operations. And it was actually a huge success from day one. People gave us awesome feedback. Not just because of the user experience, we gave good experience, not on the UI, giving them a host of verification options with an authenticator app, Q&A, for verification, or OTPs. But the key thing that made a difference was the elimination of VPN as a dependency when they were trying to reset their passwords. So our previous setup required users to be on VPN, and let's say a person's password expired. Like I've been one of those people, right? They always let their password expire, and then I realized, hey, I had to reset something. I forgot about it. Just putting it off. The word is master procrastinator or something, right? So I'm one of those guys, right? So if you ended up in one of those situations, you had to actually drive down to a facility, to a store, to be on the network and reset your password if you were trying to do it yourself. So Identity Now gave us the capability to install agents and be able to, securely reset your password over the internet.
Now, don't be mistaken. Going to the store is a good thing.
We highly encourage that. COVID's been great for us. We definitely want more people to go. So we continue to improve user experience, introduced support for an additional language, French, for people up in Canada, Montreal side, I guess. So, but the other major release that we recently had, along with the JML release in IIQ, was allowing our new hires to set their first passwords, using the Identity Now solution. And first password set is basically agnostic of knowing or setting a default password. So there's no communicating a clear text password out to an end user or their managers that, hey, you can go in and log in with this and, set your first passwords, none of that. We made sure that the solution was adaptable enough that it provide verification options for first-time users, and we use that for experience as well as security reasons, and it's worked out pretty well for us. So last 2.5 years, just in a nutshell, we have decommissioned 8 legacy platforms, moved on to the 2 central platforms that I mentioned, all based in SailPoint, and we continue on our journey.
Very good, thank you. So that ultimately gives us a better user experience that reduces risks. So we actually reached a point where we reached a point in time where we had no remaining audit findings listed, which anybody in IAM, you're probably getting audit findings once in a while. You know what they are. We were able to close out all of our legacy findings, close out things, and get in a better place. When we look at it, so using the combination, we're able to use APIs to automate. We have very, very little manual processes left in our bit. We've got repeatable processes. A single solution, we've got 2 tools, but they're very tied together. They're using the same data set. We're able to increase the productivity. We're able to get people their IDs, their access right away. If it's through Birthright, it's immediate. If it's through an access request, it is as soon as someone approves, the access is there. We've reduced our risk. We've got a much easier password setup. Before we had 4 different systems across different parts of the company. We've got that centralized. And we truly use our SailPoint solutions as a single point of truth. Going on, we talked about the importance of people. I wouldn't be up here if if people are looking for jobs, we're always hiring. I'm not trying to shamelessly recruit, but we are always hiring. So it is a great place to work. Yeah. And I'm going to turn it to Q&A and see if you guys have questions here. There's a mic right there. If you don't mind going to there's one in each aisleway there. And while we're doing questions, I'm just going to put up a couple quotes we got from our IDN deployment.
So for your password management for the new hires, how are you guys verifying those users, and are you using Identity Now for that, or is that outside of Identity Now?
Sure. So we are actually setting passwords that are not, to create something in a directory, you need some default passwords, so we kind of randomize that and set that for the first time. So that's not known to the user at all. For the user itself, there's no password at the moment. When they come in and they start to set their first passwords, we use a combination of verification options such as OTP, and some of that information is vetted. So there's verification upfront when they're entered into the Workday solution, and there's verification when they start setting their first passwords, and the personal information that they've provided is used for OTP and such.
Great question.
Thank you.
See one over here?
Yeah. How big is your team that is doing these implementations, and how big was the services team that helped get you started?
So I'll let you first talk to the teams you mentioned there.
Yeah, so we have, we had an in-house team that was around 40-ish.
20-ish?
No.
20-ish on just IGA.
Yeah. So around 20-ish people on the IGA, the internal teams that have kind of helped us along the journey. But, as we evolved, so the implementation partner, I think you were asking about the implementation partner, Their teams have been around 35 to 35 people or so.
In that ballpark.
And it's been, so it's not all SailPoint, right? I mean, because we have a lot of technology infrastructure behind the scenes. We have a data layer, so we need people to kind of be able to manage the data layer and kind of engineer there, operate that. We have Azure-based infrastructure that needs to be obviously designed and operated. And then there's the SailPoint side of the world. And APIs that we've built on top of everything. So,
Yeah,
we divided and kind of conquered.
And if I go back to I gave the picture earlier that we're a full service IAM team. Across all of our services, by the time you add in privilege and authentication and that, we've got around 80 US FTE. Yeah. And we also have an offshore team that we've contracted to support us. So we've got 24/7 support. That brings in another 80 or 90 people. Now, for many of you with smaller companies, things like that, those numbers are, oh my gosh, how'd you get there? When you look at a scale and say, okay, we're supporting 500,000 users, we're also supporting all of our customer identities and that, the numbers start to rationalize a little bit. But yeah, it does take an effort and a partner to make sure you've deployed it. And one of our biggest challenges was, as we deployed this, we had to deploy new while at the same time running all the old stuff, I'll use the word stuff, that we weren't happy with, that was breaking and that was giving us audit findings. See another question here?
I'm curious, you said you're early in your journey with self-service, but curious if you've strategized how you might make that effective or successful within your organization. This is something our app teams have been asking us about, and would love to hear more about it.
So I'll start that and then I'll turn it to Varun for some more specifics. So we've absolutely strategized it. And when you say self-service onboarding, one of my pet peeves as an IAM leader is onboarding to what? Because I need to onboard them to SailPoint. I need to onboard them to authentication. I need to onboard them to privilege. I wish that there was a tool out there where I could just say it's going to onboard to IAM services and do it all at once. But this right now is what we've designed, what's built is towards that vision of what I just shared, of saying how do we onboard everything, but it really starts with our SailPoint implementation.
Sure, and at this time, we've focused on some of the IGA-related onboarding, basically in SailPoint at the moment. And what you asked is a complex question to answer, so I'll try to summarize, and I'll be happy to kind of do a one-on-one later. But in a nutshell, you've got to start thinking about, hey, how is it that you want to solve the problem, right? What do application developers really want? Do they just want APIs? Or do they kind of want to be onboarded end-to-end using like a workflow solution that basically gives them the capability to, like upload something such as entitlement metadata, and then, kind of onboard themselves. A great place to start, so in essence, you need, some sort of workflow capability because, you're not gonna, if it's happening without anybody knowing about it, it's probably not an effective control. So you definitely want to control that through using some sort of workflow. You want to have APIs behind it that, can be used to kind of onboard and such. Want to start with some of the basic use cases around, hey, AD entitlements, let's club that into an application. So, we can target those first when we start with an application onboarding solution. And lastly, I think whether we like it or not, you have to take a journey, right? I mean, initially, custom applications are just not feasible, right? I mean, but are really, you can't have a hands-off solution that basically onboards REST API connectors like that, unless, you go really advanced. There's ways to do that, but it's, super advanced. And I'm not even thinking about that yet, right? Think about the 90-10 split. The 90% of your applications are going to be like AD or database or some of the base ones, right? So I'm focused on those. Oh, and one more thing. You've got to start thinking from the inception. So, from the inception of a technology, right? So maybe try and plug in the application onboarding process when assets start getting created. So several considerations there. I tried to kind of nutshell that a bit.
Got another question over here?
Congratulations and thanks for sharing your journey.
Thank you.
This is great. I wanted to understand your journey with your service identities, if you have a plan for those.
Do you want to speak louder?
Service identities?
Service identities.
Okay. So service identity creation, we have, we have multiple types of service identities, right? And we know that machine identities are proliferating. So at this point, what we have plugged is the creation of service accounts. We're trying to kind of provide a funnel or a process that goes in via SailPoint and creates service accounts. And it sets all the required metadata on those service accounts. And at the same time, we have integration with CyberArk that basically goes in, vaults those accounts, and then creates authorization groups based on the information we've collected at that point. Now, there's further steps that we want to take in the service account journey, kind of basically an end-to-end process that works with the service account discovery as well, something that we are aiming to do in the future, and other things that I'm not necessarily able to kind of discuss at the moment, but happy to do a one-on-one as well.
And if there's follow-up questions from things, we've got our names up here if you want to connect with us on LinkedIn, connect with us out in the hall, et cetera. Any other questions? I see one here.
Yeah. Actually, I got just a couple of questions. One is, of course, you talk about identity now for the password management, right? Also, you guys mentioned about 2,000 plus the directories. So how are you guys managing the password interceptor and all?
So password interceptor. So the setting of the password. So it's a good question. So we have a hybrid sort of a model where we're using Identity IQ and Identity Now in tandem, right? Identity Now helps you or gives you the capability to set your passwords, right? And that hits our corporate directories. And then we try to synchronize the passwords using the password interceptor.
Take out the words try to. We do.
Sorry, bad habit. So we synchronize our passwords from the corporate directory to the stored directories using the password interceptor. Gotcha. So as you know, interceptor is a complex model, and it has its own challenges, but we've been able to kind of make it work, using the JML release.
And as with any journey, there's different things that we still need to do. And directories is a big focus of ours to say, how do we do directories? How do we do passwordless? So there's other things that you kind of cycle them in and say, what am I focusing on this year? Things change over time. So we built to what we have today and then looked to go forward. And
one general question, of course, you guys are using IAQ, and you mentioned like maybe 3 years back you guys pick IAQ, and now where the identity now is going with all the workflows, AI. So are you guys started thinking, or maybe do you have any recommendations like transitioning over from IAQ to IDN? Because this is the kind of like a general question for many customers.
So I'll take that one. So I think we're watching identity now and deciding what we do. I don't want to go to our CIO or our CISO and say, hey, can I have X million dollars to change from the tool that I deployed last week? That's just not probably the smart way to keep my career. So I think right now, what we have works really, really well for us. I think we're watching, and there will be some inflection point in the future where we look and say, hey, we might want to switch. We've gotten good encouragement and focus back from Mark and others at SailPoint that IIQ is here to stay for a long haul. There'll be some inflection point where we want to change tools. We built this that we can change when we need to change, but right now we're very happy with what we've got. So we've got to let the dust settle. If I were a company making a decision today, as I said earlier, it might be different than I made 3 years ago. It might be different if I made it in 3 years. So we've got another question here. And thank you guys for asking questions. I appreciate this.
So as far as external users, I know.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. For external users, can you hear me? Okay. It's always a challenge to really know, is this person still with your third-party vendor? How do you guys manage those identities?
So when we look at external users, so we have our workers, we have our contract base, we then have external users like the vendors you're talking about, and then we've got you guys, our customers who come in through .com. My team doesn't manage the external users. We've got another tool set that manages that, and that feeds into our systems, but that's a side topic which I could have with you, but I don't have great depth to share with you. Okay. We've really focused ourselves on the worker journey, both the employees and the contractors.
Thank you.
Yep. I thought we were running out of questions. Now they're lining up.
First of all, thank you for sharing this great journey. Doing like 4,500 applications in a matter of 6 weeks is pretty impressive. Is it safe to assume that you don't have any disconnected applications anymore, or do you have disconnected applications?
We have disconnected applications, but they are minimal. You're always going to have some disconnected applications. I would be amazed if I ever saw a complex IAM program that didn't have disconnected. That's because things change frequently and because you've got older technologies. We've minimized it.
So how do you manage those for certification?
So if someone's doing an access request or something, we send a ticket off to ServiceNow. We get data files for them the same way anybody else would handle disconnected. But what we've done is just try to really minimize that set.
Okay. Thank you.
So, and I think we got to wrap it up shortly, but I'll take one more.
Yeah.
And then we will be available afterwards and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm making an assumption when I'm asking this question. Are you guys PCI compliant also?
I sure as heck hope so, yes.
Yes.
Are you using SailPoint Identity IQ to also manage PCI enclave, if you have a separate one, that is?
We do certifications and all with our PCI applications to make sure that the access is managed correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You gonna sneak in a quick one here?
Thank you for sharing your journey. It's really impressive. The question that I have is, I was really impressed with your line, that every associate should be basically able to work day one, hour one.
Yes.
So to do that, one of the use cases that comes to my mind is there are a lot of associates at Home Depot that can come to a particular store, not the regular store, but their other store to work for a few days, right? So the question is, there are a lot of scenarios around that. So how do you enable their accesses on day one for them? And secondly, how do you restrict their access only for a certain number of days?
So that's something that's really an HR question as to what do we enable for, and you have snowbirds who travel from north to south and things like that. That's something that the company as a whole is looking at to say, how do we make sure that we enable that? With the tools we have, it's a matter of data. If I get a source that yesterday you were at store 001 and today you're at 002, I have my input to make a change.
Right.
If I don't get that input, then I can't make a change.
Okay,
So
that helps.
thank you very much, everybody. I think from a time perspective, we have to wrap this up. I hope it was
Love
helpful.
the participation. Thank you.
Thank you.